What's up, everyone? Hope everybody out there is off to a great Thursday. Outside today, we finally got some fall weather in Concord, North Carolina, so I figured why not come out and enjoy it. This episode right here, I basically, this is the thing I want to hear from a lot of the older fans of NASCAR, as well as new fans, younger fans as well. But this is all around the conversations that Dale Jr. had with Steve O'Donnell yesterday, which come out yesterday, which if you have not seen it, go check it out. It's very interesting. But some of the key points that they brought up through this conversation, and this is where I want to hear from you. I want to discuss these things really quickly and get your aspects of what you think. But one of the cool things that they started out with was the horsepower increase, which we kind of knew already that this was going to happen, but increasing to 750 horsepower for the 2026 season. Again, this is where I want to hear from you. Do you think this is enough? Do you think other changes, more increased horsepower would have been better? Or do you think it's even going to affect the racing that much? But key points they brought up was this is, part of the deal with bringing in new OEM manufacturers. And it makes sense in that aspect because you wouldn't want a new manufacturer coming in and then immediately in a year or so having to change the whole engine format. And also the cost for teams to make changes like that with the current model car that they have. Obviously millions of dollars to start with, but it could be more, way more if they went to more horsepower. So interesting aspects with all that. And then the playoffs. Interesting things. Playoffs obviously going to be changing. We're not going to know anything until the year is over. They don't want to make any announcement right now because they don't want to take anything away from the champion this year. Which I still think people are going to be saying, hey, under this format or that format, such and such would have been the champion. We see it all the time anyway, and I don't think it's going to be any different this year. But he brought up that it's deterring future stars from coming into the sport. And that's with the final race situation right here. One race to decide the title. So glad to see that's going to go away. Still questions about what it's going to be. But, he's saying this would deter future NASCAR stars from coming in because who wants to go win 7-8 races a year and then lose it in one final race when you've had such a kick-ass season? So I'm glad that they're looking into all that. It still sounds like probably the win you're in scenario is going to be in play. I still hope they'll make it a multiple win platform to get into the playoffs. I think it would make it more exciting for the racing because right now if you got a team that wins early in the season, they can coast the rest of the year if they want to. Obviously they're not, but they're not going to race as hard for a win, where if they needed multiple wins to get that free pass, I think it would make the racing so much more interesting. So hopefully maybe some changes to that throughout everything. But one of the other key parts that I liked about this was him talking about the drivers who wanted changes. He brought up Christopher Bell, but he talked about drivers coming to them to talk behind closed doors. Seemed he had a big aspect that they don't like the drivers going out and discussing things on their platforms, on social media, things like that. That they want to keep things kosher because the more drivers complain, the more fans are going to complain because that's their driver or different things that they see. But one of the big parts that he brought up was that he wants to have all the drivers behind him with the decision that they do make with this right here. So again, it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out. And again, this is where I want your opinions. How do you feel? What do you think would be the best point scenario right now? Going back to a full 36 points race season, or changing up the entire playoff format to make it 3-4 races at the end? Interesting topic. So what do you think is the best deal with all this? And also they brought up the lawsuits. And one of the interesting points I found with this was him saying that 30% of his time right now is dedicated to this lawsuit. Now, obviously, this is taken away from other things that could be handled in NASCAR for Steve. And you got to think about all the other people in NASCAR that their time is being dedicated to this. So it's obviously taken away from the sport in some way by this lawsuit taking place. And also everybody's saying, and them agreeing that this is hurting the sport. The judge brought it up, that this is hurting the sport to the fans and everybody else to see this inner conflict like this that's taking place. So the settlement talks and everything else, again, interesting because it seems like that there's been no, hey, this is what will make it good, which I found very interesting because it seems like there would have been something like that already laid out. But obviously, there's only been one mediation in this whole scenario. So hopefully, they're able to get settled down and talk about these things and just make something happen that's good for everybody involved and for the fans. But the topic of the charters, and this is where I'm curious to see what's going to happen with this. Will they become permanent? It's obviously something they wanted to do to allow teams, when a team owner sells, to have something of value to sell to somebody else, which makes sense as a business model, because you wouldn't want to, just say you're Walmart, you wouldn't want to build this whole big franchise, this building or buildings and team, people, everything else that are aspects of a business, and then sell it and only be able to sell the equipment that's inside of the facility. So obviously that they're doing good things with this. I've never particularly liked the charter system, but I see the benefit of it in so many ways. And the interesting part about this too is this is what teams wanted. Teams wanted this because they wanted guaranteed spots, which is what's part of the charter deal for their sponsors. Because teams didn't want to bring in all these millions of dollars of sponsorship money and go miss Daytona or some of the big races like that. But this again goes back over to the older fan base, because it was very interesting when you had the independent teams try to make these races. It was always cool to see this and everything take place, to have a bunch of cars show up at Daytona and have to race their way in. But I do like the aspects too that they're increasing the pay for the independent teams to come in and try to make it. But eventually this is going to go away as the new OEM teams come in as well. So, kind of questionable future as to what all is going to happen with everything of this aspects. But finally, I want to close out with this right here. And again, this goes back to the older fans and the younger fans, but I want to hear your thoughts with the changes that they are making right now. As far as racetracks, let's just say that for instance, because we got Bowman Gray back for the Clash, and you can't get no more historic with NASCAR than Bowman Gray, and then North Wilkesboro. Everything that went into North Wilkesboro just to bring it back to life. Then get the All-Star race, which now 2026 is turning over to a points paying race, something so many people are going to be excited about, to see all the cars out there on the racetrack. And then we got Chicagoland coming back, and very interesting topics of conversation with that, because the street course is still not out. There's the possibility, even brought a possibility of running both of them. I really can't see happening in the same season, because it wouldn't kind of make sense to go to the same area like that. But again, this is NASCAR. They can do whatever they want to do with this right here. But again, are some of these older tracks coming back, helping bring back in the older fan base that was just distracted and detoured from NASCAR racing over the last few years? And also to the newer fans, how do you feel about these old tracks coming back? Would you rather see them go to some new racetracks or new tracks be built, or do you like the idea of going back to some of these older facilities? So please, let me hear from you on all this right here, because it's very interesting topics, and it's what I want to talk to you about. I just want to get your opinions and have some interesting dialogue to see how everybody out there, as far as race fans, feels about the future of NASCAR. But anyways, hope you have a great Thursday out there. Still got the trivia episode coming to you. Might be Saturday, might be tomorrow. We'll see. Just check with the channel. Subscribe, get notifications coming in, and I really want to interact with you on that, because that's such a fun piece to do. So I hope it builds into something that everybody enjoys and has a lot of interaction with. But once again, hope you have a great Thursday, and as always, we'll see you at the checkered flag.